Well, one of the unexpected heroes in Canada who rose to the occasion, not through the trucker convoy, but through a personal battle, is our guest today. Her name is Amy Hamm, and she was a nurse. She still is a nurse, but because she dared to stand up for the idea that there is such a thing as a woman and it excludes being a man, and that she dared to put up a billboard in Vancouver saying, "I heart J.K. Rowling," for that alone, she was prosecuted, and I would say persecuted, by the College of Nurses and Midwives in British Columbia, drumming her out of her jobs, finding her, basically going full lawfare against her. But I don't think they counted on her being so resilient. I think she was an ordinary person thrust into extraordinary circumstances, and she rose to the occasion. And I mention all that because it's interesting and because it shows that she was willing to suffer for the truth, which I think is a sign of character. But I think it also feeds into her latest article. She writes weekly in the National Post, and her latest, a couple days ago, is called "Canadian Trust in Institutions is at a Low Point." And that's a good thing. Joining us now is Amy Hamm. Amy, great to see you. You would know the BC College of Nurses and Midwives is one such institution that I don't think anyone would have even thought to question. That's just, they're there like the wallpaper or the furniture. No one even thinks about it. But actually, they've been utterly infected with the woke mind virus. And so many institutions that we just used to trust reflexively are the same way, aren't they?
They are, we see these high profile cases. Mine became a high profile story, as did Jordan Peterson's with the College of Psychologists in Ontario. But the sort of persecution that's happening it's happening to hundreds of Canadians across the country. It happens every day, cases that we don't hear about. There's another woman in Ontario right now named Amy McKay, who, similar to myself, has made publicly comments about gender ideology and the existence of two sexes, and her college is attempting to pressure her out of her teaching license. They basically want her to surrender her license for the comments that she made. We have just such rot in all of our institutions in Canada. What I wrote about is the fact that we've sort of just handed over power to these woke progressive zealots, and there aren't enough people who are really willing to stand up and say that we've had enough. But now that we're seeing, these surveys of the Canadian population, it's clear that the vast majority of Canadians do not trust these institutions. So I think the next step is we really have to take action and prove that.
Every year, Edelman, which is a large public relations firm, publishes their trust index. And I find it very interesting because it's one of the few sort of fancy elite institutions that's willing to acknowledge that there's even a problem. Let me just read the subheadline of your article. It's, "We've allowed activists, judges, educators, politicians, public health officials, and bureaucrats to operate without accountability for too long." Like you just basically listed all of society other than, I suppose, private sector. And you know what? I remember when I was younger and all these students were going into gender studies and vegetarian studies and all these different studies. And I sort of thought, ha, 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 they're not even going to there's no such thing as a job in those things. Like I sort of, in my mind, I mocked them, but was I ever wrong? That's absolutely that's the pipeline to $200,000 a year equity jobs. I'm the idiot trying to work in the free market as an employee or even as an entrepreneur. I was wrong. All of those things you just listed, or that are listed in your article, that's where the woke schools dump their outflow into. Now I noticed you didn't say mom and pop shops, corner groceries, ordinary people. We have specifically riveted our left-wing schools to all these public institutions. So it was inevitable, wasn't it?
It was. And what you're talking about is exactly what I saw working in healthcare. I was with Vancouver Coastal Health as a registered nurse for 13 years. They fired me just about a year ago after I was found guilty of professional misconduct for stating that there are two sexes, male and female, during a nursing shortage, by the way. But over the more than a decade that I was with this institution, the type of people you're talking about, these people that, they have arts degrees, they've studied gender, more and more of these people are hired into these pointless roles, and they're making better money than the nurses are making on the front lines in a healthcare system where patients are actually dying in emergency rooms and we don't have enough care providers, and yet we're just giving away millions and millions of dollars to these ideologues. It's just completely bonkers.
Let me read a little bit from your article, and you referred to the Edelman study. Only 28% of Canadians gave Parliament a rating of 4 or 5. That's a trustworthy score. Media got 36%, schools 45%, courts 48%, and police were the highest at 63%. I think police have shat the bed a little bit in recent years. I mean, their conduct during COVID, when many police forces allowed themselves to become tools of public health social engineering. I mean, the New York
Yeah.
Police Department was one notable exception. They really said, we're not going to get into this. But I remember seeing police in many countries. Australia, they were brutal. California, they would arrest lone people sitting on the beach. I think
Yeah,
police did themselves an atrocious disservice. But come back to the media.
I think
36% of people trust the media. I want to know who those 36% are, because I want to go
yeah.
back to the before times when I mean, I don't think I ever trusted the media. At a very young age, I realized that any story I knew about firsthand, I would find many errors in a story. So I would have to assume that the stories I didn't know about the firsthand facts, why would they be any more
Yeah.
accurate? And then it was no longer a case of accuracy. It was deliberate spin, which is a different thing. It's not that there is a
Yeah,
mistake. It's a deliberate propaganda. I don't
for
know.
sure.
Let me ask you about your headline, which is, it's a good thing. I suppose it's a good thing that we're waking up to this mismanagement of these industries, but that means we don't know what to believe in. And there's so many false prophets and scam artists out there. I mean, I think of Candace Owens and Nick Fuentes.
Oh
Their
yeah.
strength is that, well, we're not the establishment. You can't trust them,
Yeah.
so trust me. It's the second part that's dangerous. I don't trust the New York Times, the Washington Post, the BBC. I don't trust any of those. Like Candace Owens and Nick
Yeah,
Fuentes, I'm a distruster, but I'm
of
not going to go
course.
with charlatans like them.
No, I think if you could stratify this 36, what was it, 36.8% or something of people who trust the media, if we were looking at independent media in Canada versus the mainstream media or government funded media, I think you would see vastly different numbers there. Because I do think there are a lot of independent outlets that are gaining a lot of public trust, and they demonstrate accountability and they demonstrate that they're looking for the truth in their reporting, as your outlet included. Um, but you're right that these charlatans can sort of step in without having sort of any cohesive message. They're just spouting nonsense, as we're seeing with Candace Owens in particular right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of this has to do with, again, COVID, where you had doctors and pharmacists amongst the most trustworthy people in the world who just started being Pfizer salesmen or something. I mean, I remember my own doctor, who I really like, started giving me the Pfizer line, and I just didn't want to argue with him about it. I mean, he wasn't going to change my mind. Same the other way. I just was there for another reason, and he started giving me these talking points like, well, did you know that Facebook made $4 billion through false posts? Like, are you persuaded? Do you, like, that
That's
wasn't
wild.
a doctor's argument. That was a lame political argument. And imagine how my
Yeah.
trust in medical experts, and Teresa, all these white lab coats with a clipboard. So therefore you must trust me. Oh, but you
Yeah.
can't use ivermectin. And like, it's just, I can't believe how badly they detonated the belief in one's doctor. Everyone used to love doctors, look up to them. I think they massacred their reputation. And I hate
Yeah.
to say it. I mean, my father was a doctor. I mean, I do look up to the work that doctors did. They're smart, but holy
Yeah.
smokes, did they ever sell out?
I still have a lot of respect for the medical profession as well. And you don't become a doctor if you're an idiot. They're intelligent people, but I think what happened during COVID, so much of the public lost trust, especially in public health officials that sold us lies. And if Canada were to enter into an actual emergency, like say we had an Ebola outbreak, as unlikely as that is, we would be absolutely hooped as a country because after what happened in COVID, nobody is going to be following public health orders. And today, it's kind of funny that today is the day that we saw the appeal of the Emergencies Act was put down at the Supreme Court of Canada, and that goes to show again, we still, despite the truth that has been reported and that has been outed since then, we still have a government in Canada that was willing to waste years and who knows how much money and resources and time just trying to undo a court ruling that, of course, they were going to lose that appeal of the Emergencies Act.